I had to find a way to stop them trying to kill me.
You made a serious mistake.
Not as serious as yours, Asher.
Bane.
Let's not stand on ceremony here. Mr. Wayne.
I really think there's a lot to learn from comic books. Like, I've never been a really avid comic book reader. I've just watched the series, but I've always found comic books to be very elaborate. I believe it's a way for like adults to live out the lives they couldn't have as kids, or to recreate the lives they missed as kids in a way that everybody else can love as well. And that's why I personally like, I don't believe there's such a thing as having a hobby that is too that you're too old for, right? Especially when it comes to like collecting action figures, collecting comics, collecting Pokemon cards, because these collectibles become very, very valuable later on, as you can see with Pokemon cards. And I used to have them. I lost all of them. I still have some Yu-Gi-Oh cards, but I don't even know if they're legit ones. If I could find like legit ones, I'm selling them on eBay as soon as I can, right? And I watched The Dark Knight, then I watched The Dark Knight Rises, and both villains, the Heath Ledger's Joker and Tom Hardy's Bane, were some of the best portrayals of those villains I've ever seen. Across the comics, across the series, you name it. They're not the only ones. There's some other good ones, but especially Tom Hardy's Bane was amazing. Because if you look up the story of Bane himself, he was literally born in the fucking trenches. Like, he lived in the fucking trenches. And it's not just that he's like a big pile of like muscle. He's incredibly intelligent. Especially this portrayal of Bane. Like, I know in others, like older movies, they just portrayed him as like a meathead. But if you even go by the comic books, like, God damn, I can't remember the place where he was imprisoned. It was some island, like, for most of his childhood. He had to like learn how to eat rats. He had to learn how to kill people as a child to survive. He had to work out all the time. But then he also, he learned every possible thing that he could. He read wherever he could. And if you ask somebody what was Bane's end goal in the movie, to liberate Gotham, but it could have been a number of different things. You could rationalize it as like complex PTSD from the nightmare, from the bat nightmare he had or something. You could say he has maybe a god complex or something. I don't know. It's not, he pointed out a lot of hypocrisy in organized society. He pointed out just how fucking filthy a lot of these a lot of developed societies define themselves on concepts that are in actuality incredibly diabolical and incredibly exploitative, but we hold them up as virtues. And in talking about embracing the darkness and really embracing the abyss, Bane is the most stunning example for me. He's the quintessential example for me, for what exactly I mean. Don't go and fucking live in some prison and eat rats. Please don't, But at the same time, the way that deep-seated will to live manifested itself In how the writers imagined Bane to be, he was somebody who really encapsulated the will to live, right? He's a character that's very, he there's not too many times that you can say Batman has ever met his match. And the crazy thing about Batman, if Bane is really the one who's the villain, Batman is a fucking billionaire. Bruce Wayne is literally a fucking multi-billionaire. If he wanted to end crime in Gotham, like reasonably, he'd donate his money to getting kids off the streets, maybe teaching them sports or something, or art or music, if it's food, just opening up you're just donating it, really, just doing things that will improve the lives of people, that they won't have to engage in crime. But you know what this fucking guy does? Puts on a bad mask and goes and beats up teenagers for stealing a packet of fucking peanuts at the corner store. That's what he does, right? Oh, but he doesn't kill, right? Yeah, he also doesn't actually help fix any systemic issues that actually exist. And that's where people don't see the evil side of Batman. He's like an active bystander. He's literally the most active bystander there is, because he's a fucking billionaire. He he is one of the, he's the stellar example of how fucked up Gotham is. But then, to clear his conscience, he becomes Batman to go beat up fucking petty criminals. And yet he's one of the big, if you really look at it, Batman as a billionaire in a very corrupt city like Gotham, he's one of the biggest fucking criminals. That's why I liked Bane so much, because he really doesn't pull any punches. He most of all really confronts Batman in a way that other villains, not even the Joker, does. Because the Joker is some weird ass bromance with Batman. It's continuity why their timeline still exists. But him and Bane, because they're both, they both grew up orphaned. I think Bane's father is still alive, if I remember correctly. But either way, they both grew up orphaned and all that. They had a very similar traumatic upbringing, except Bane's, materially speaking, was a lot worse than Batman. No kid wants to see their parents get murdered. But Bane was literally serving a sentence for a crime he did not commit as a child. And he still somehow got out, got enough intellect to break down the fucking, to take over one of the most corrupt cities in the DC universe. And he didn't even have, he really didn't even expend that much effort, because when you live, to me, I think that every single society has an underbelly. You can say humanity itself as a concept has an underbelly. And when you lived in the world that is pretty much the underworld, let's say the underworld, right? Even though the actual world is the underworld itself, but let's just take the example. Once you've lived in the underworld, the surface world, you realize it's just a reflection of the surface world. And a lot of the evil you've lived around, it exists in the surface world, but hidden. It's not as transparent to people who can't see it. And, if you call Bane a villain, you'd have to start by calling Batman the bigger villain. That's why Bane he's an anti-hero. He's an anti-hero because he let, and it's a really, it's a really awkward criticism of the prison system as well, because he says that the Gotham prisoners were, they were an oppressed class, and that's the crazy thing. I think I agree with him, because if you look at the guy who's responsible for throwing them in jail, he's literally a fucking 0.01% man. And he had to cover oh man. I love that speech of him exposing what was his name? Two-Face? Harvey Dent. Was it Two-Face? Yeah, Two-Face, yeah. For him exposing Two-Face and exposing how Batman was so complicit in this in government. I don't know if you can call it corruption. Yeah, I guess you could call it corruption, whatever. And for you to watch that movie and think, was Bane in the wrong? I say yes. He killed a lot of people. He did. He definitely killed a lot of innocent people at the same time. And that's the crazy thing with believing that your cause is the most important one. People just become collateral damage very quickly and very easily. If you were just to examine it in the movie, let's leave reality, because it's all escapism, right? Just leave reality behind and just look in the movie for what it is, right? Was he really the one in the wrong? He was wrong in that he created so much collateral damage, but he was right in that in doing so, he exposed how a lot of the so-called protectors, the people that we're supposed to be looking up to, are the reason why a lot of the misery still exists. This is why actual, people who are somebody who's an anti-hero, has the personality of an anti-hero, can be incredibly dangerous in a good way and a bad way. Because they could be good in that they believe that the means justify the ends. Or they could be bad in that they believe the ends justify the means. And me, personally, I loved seeing him break Batman's back. Break Batman's back. Wow. Yeah. I loved that fight scene. Because Bane doesn't have any special superpowers. He just has the venom that they experimented on him with. Which is, I don't know, you can take it as an allegory for steroids. I'll say it's steroids, I don't think everyone can take steroids, but technically you can, right? I don't know where to get them, and I really would never want to try them myself, but that was the only thing he had, right? It was the venom. And he folded Batman like fucking origami. He folded that man. It was really so brilliant to see. And the older you get, the more you'll start cheering on the villain or the anti-hero. Because once you realize that they're always selling you dualism, they're always selling you the all or nothing. That's all that they're selling you. And yet we know reality doesn't exist that way. On certain topics, you can say, it's a yes or a no, it's allowed, it's not allowed, it's okay, it's sanctioned, it's unsanctioned. You as an individual can say that.
Leave us.
No, you stay here. I'm in charge.
Do you feel in charge?
I've paid you a small fortune.
This gives you power over me?
What is this?
But the way human beings interact, things become blurred very quickly. And a lot of it is by design. Maybe if we all agreed that, hey, we're all not going to do this one thing. That could be, it would be stunning if human beings could agree on one thing. I guess we agree on the existence of money. A lot of us agree that it's bullshit that it exists. It's not even, in fact, we ourselves brought money into existence. It doesn't define us because we created it. How the fuck does something that we created lead so many people, it brainwashes so many people into to replicating it? That's why I loved how Joker set fucking money on fire. Like, to me, the Joker and Bane, they really represented anarchism. And I'm talking about, like, there's the Western capitalist version of fear mongering anarchism, but like the more the more theoretical.
Oh, I am. I'm only burning my half. All you care about is money. This town deserves a better class of criminal. And I'm gonna give it to them. Tell your men they work for me now. This is my city.
Underpinnings of anarchy, I really think they displayed in the best ways possible. Because if you look at even just history itself, like the 19th and 20th centuries, that's when anarchism was really, it formed out of, I think, socialism and communism, that whole sphere. And anarchists got shit done. Holy shit. They didn't, like, yeah, you can organize, you can protest, but like several European heads of state and I think American heads of state were assassinated by self-proclaimed. I get so tired of fucking talking sometimes.
Have you ever had a dream that you had you could do so you want him to do you so much you could do anything?
Several heads of state were assassinated by self-identified anarchists. Look it up. I'm pretty sure the guy who assassinated Franz Ferdinand was an anarchist. I don't know. I think I remember in history class he was a Serbian nationalist, maybe, but I'm pretty sure he was more of an anarchist than a nationalist. Not sure, but either way, they got shit done. They did, right? And that is why such villains, we don't even see them as villains, as more like anti-heroes. Like, Joker is unambiguously a villain, I would say. But at the same time, he's one of those villains that exist to be to sort of point out the hypocrisy of the good ones, of the good in society, right? Why continue to perpetuate something that you know is going to create more and more evil the longer it grows, and yet you trying to fight it makes you the better person? Just so you can say you did something, just so you can say you did something good, even if you had the chance to end evil in some way. But I'm not even saying it as like I have all the answers or I know exactly what the fuck, the best way to do it is. I don't know. I don't. But when you see how other human beings have been able to describe it in their art forms, people understand these things very well, and they understand that to finish what it is we don't want to have around is usually never going to take the form that you expect it to. Either way, I could watch The Dark Knight Rises every single month and just never get tired of it. Because it does get you to question a lot about, I've said before that legal prisoners have more rights than us when they're not being like literally enslaved, of course. But legally speaking, they have more rights than uh the civilian population, because it's like two steps away from you to end up as a prisoner anyways. Just don't pay your rent. That's about it, really. Just don't pay your rent, end up on the street, end up doing crime, you're there, right? 3 steps. Or otherwise get involved in illicit business, end up in prison. So I hope I find another villain or another anti-hero that I like as much as Bane, because if you're really, really a doomer, if you're really, really into looking into the abyss is not a fun activity. But this reality will force you to do it one way or another. And if you don't do it on your own terms, it is terrifying.